Good afternoon and welcome to Generation Movie New Release Friday on April 24th. It is a big weekend at the movies with one of the most eagerly anticipated musical biopics in recent memory, opening this weekend. That movie, of course, is Michael. Maybe we could show the picture. A picture. There it is. Okay, took a little bit. Directed by Antoine Fuqua, who did Training Day. It's from the producers of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's also made by the Jackson estate. And it basically chronicles the early portion of Michael's career, from the starts with the Jackson 5 all the way up to Bad is where the movie kind of abruptly ends, with maybe a promise of a sequel. So if you're watching and you enjoy what you see, the Indie Escape Network is a collection of like-minded individuals that have come together, where we have podcasts, do things with very cool creatives, offer you insight into movies and television, and do all of the things that are pop culture relevant in this 2026. So we have a movie history show called Generation Movie, which is what I'm part of, along with Rich Dries, and that is on Monday nights, and we do movie history. Right now, we're working on a legacy sequel list of films that we're dealing with, and this upcoming Monday, we're doing Aliens. We just got done with Alien. We're moving to Aliens, which is, a movie that was 7 years after the original was made and is a completely different movie than the original. We also do Loud and Nerdy on Tuesday night. That's the wrong one. Do Loud and Nerdy on Tuesday nights with myself again and Jerry Kimura of the band Slapjaw. And we have a wonderful woman named Raven who joins us, who's delightfully difficult. And occasionally Joe Ridgely of the Indie Escape Network joins us as well. And we have a cadre of guests. We just had Robert Dunn on, a very talented actor, writer, producer, who went viral recently, and also, has been in Criminal Minds. He was in a movie called Cannibal Comedian. A super talented guy, and we just had him on this past Tuesday. We also have Gabe, who joins us. He has incredible guests. He does a show called Symbolistic Cynicism. He recently had Charles Edwin Powell on, who discussed The Exorcist 3 and its filming, so behind the scenes. Really cool. He was also in Stream. He was also in Screamboat and Lost Junction. Super talented. And then we have two guys that come every other Thursday, and they are shifting their show back to the original title, which is Technical Defects, and that's with Ryan West and Joe Ridgely, and they talk all kinds of stuff, hot button issues, like AI and all kinds of things like that, and also they discuss movies and pop culture and toys and anything you can imagine people discussing on a pop culture basis. We are here on New Release Friday, though, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not bad. It's just kind of their news is where we're at. Michael is out this week. It is highly anticipated. It just had a amazing opening day. It made $12.6 million opening day. It's the biggest opening of the year. It beat Project Hail Mary. So it did $12.6 million from Wednesday and Thursday into Friday, which beat Project Hail Mary, which was $12 million, and Scream 7, which was $7.8 million. And so it's Project Hail Mary ended with about $80 million for its opening weekend. Scream 7 ended with 63. So Michael's going to have a big opening weekend. And it is virtually critic proof. But I am somebody that reviews movies, and I am here to tell you the good and the bad. The good starts with this guy, Jaafar Jackson. He is Michael's nephew, and he is He is very talented. He's got a raw talent to him. He is Jermaine Jackson's son. And he basically got the lead role from an open audition, a casting call. And he'd never sung or danced professionally before. But he is very good as Michael. He gets the mannerisms down. He gets many of the dance moves down perfectly. He's a very talented dancer. He's a decent actor. It's he's never been anything else before, and it's kind of a really good performance from a first time actor, and he's playing Michael. These are the early years of Michael, so it starts with the Jackson 5, starts with Joe Jackson and Michael's mother, and then creating the Jackson 5, and the father kind of willing everything into existence with regards to a career for his son, so they didn't have to work in steel mill like he did, all the way to pushing them too hard, having them skip school, having them practice late into the night and being tired for school the next day, having them go on gigs when they're all in their early, Michael's 10 when everything starts, and then all the other kids are in various teen stages where they're missing school, doing things. Joe is the traditional stage father who expects more from his kids than maybe they're capable of, but Michael is super talented, and everybody knows Michael's talented. And the movie is very much about Michael starting off talented, getting his talent, focusing his talent, finding voices and people that understand him in Berry Gordy and Quincy Jackson, and basically, I said Quincy Jackson, not Quincy Jackson, Quincy Jones, sorry, and basically finding his voice and finding, that he's talented, creating Off the Wall, creating Thriller, it has him creating all these different things, the video for Beat It, Bad on Stage performances, live performances during the Jackson tour. It has scenes of him creating Thriller with John Landis, the film director, after he watches like Night of the Living Dead and The Fly, and the idea that incorporating Vincent Price into this music video, and just has, this young kid kind of finding his voice and being able to break away from the stage father that is played by Coleman Domingo, who is an absolute nightmare of a human being, the way he treats his kids. Now, a couple things. It is very much a television movie version of events with a very high budget. Some would rank, the budget of this movie is about anywhere from $165 to $170 million. So it's a very high budget television movie. And it never really, while the performances are very good, Coleman Domingo is very good. He's abusive. He's cantankerous. He's smart enough to see he's being pushed out. He's smart enough, to calling the kids on the table, all these different things. It never really gets into the deep psychological wounds that Michael might have gotten. It never gets into, how, what Joe Jackson was thinking, aside from being a weird stage father that kind of was getting high on his own kids' supply. And it never wants to be anything but that. It is a crowd pleaser because you cannot have a movie filled with Michael Jackson music, which in the late 70s, early 80s, and into the 90s was mesmerizing music. It wasn't a question of whether or not Michael Jackson was the talented king of pop. It was always, the questions came after. And this movie has no interest in any of those questions and no interest in any of the controversies that Michael achieved later in his life. Now, it does say near the end of the movie, his story continues. So maybe there is going to be a sequel where we dive into the deepest, darkest, rumors, conjectures, court cases, drug addiction, all the things that happen to Michael later in life. But this movie is much more a celebration of the music and the kid who becomes the king of pop, and how he got out from underneath this horrible, father figure that was treating all of the kids poorly. Now the set pieces are amazing. The set pieces are full recreations of famous events. The Jackson 5 World Tour, the that replaced the Thriller tour, filming the video for Thriller, recording sessions with Berry Gordy and Quincy Jones. It has all of those things, and it is incredible. They're all expertly shot. And again, Jaafar Jackson, the nephew of Michael Jackson, is great. He is fantastic. Coleman Domingo is also great as Joe Jackson in a very dark turn. But it never gets anything below the surface. It's all very surface level, and in many ways could be seen as a way to kind of clean up Michael's image. One of the things that has come up is that this is a movie that is inherently produced by the estate of Michael Jackson, that has an inherent need or an inherent want to make sure that the Jackson legacy is unsullied and unblemished, which we know is not the case. But like I said, it is a crowd pleaser that is it's super flawed in that it comes across as a better than average TV movie that happens to have all of the catalog hits that you find yourself tapping your toes to in a theater. And it also has such high production values that it recreates stadium tours, music videos. It recreates all of them while having catalog behind them to be able to not require you to do anything but enjoy the movie for what it is, which is kind of like the kid being abused by Joe Jackson and him escaping out from under it and finding that he's the most talented of the bunch. Now it has Bubbles the chimp, who's been in the trailers, which is not a giveaway. It has all the weird idiosyncrasies of Michael being in love with Peter Pan and being in love, and his charity work early on, where he was going and buying car full of toys and going to children's wards. It has all of those things, but none of the evil elephant in the room lurking in the corner that is the end or near end of Michael's life. So it never asks those questions. It never gets into those questions, and it doesn't want to. So, you're going to go in and realize that it's very much a cleansed version of anything that happens. Even when Michael goes to meet the Bloods and the Crips to shoot the music video for Beat It, where essentially many of the cast of that particular music video were actual gang members, even that is sanitized to the point where none of the gang members are cursing or anything. So it's straight. It is probably critic proof in the sense that you're going to see Michael being this charismatic, charming, amazing kid full of talent that escapes from under the father that treats him bad, beats him when he's a kid, forces him to stay up, does all these things. And we never get to see the scars on the other side. We never get to see, there's never really a big discussion of, despite a script by John Logan, who's one of the great screenwriters. John Logan, who Gladiator, Last Samurai, Sweeney Todd, The Aviator, Hugo, Skyfall, Spectre. He is a great screenwriter. This is very surface level TV movie stuff. Whereas some of the biopics we've gotten, like Bohemian Rhapsody, are warts and all. There are very little warts here on this Frog Prince. There's very little warts. Michael is seen as childlike. He's seen as ephemeral. He is this creative genius that nobody quite understands or gets, and it plays that way. And there's never any question of him the questions that we actually have in real life. And maybe that's part of doing the first movie and then making a big hit and then making a second movie that asks the tough questions. But it is very hard to watch a movie where Michael is going to all these children's wards and hospitals and there's never any question of it, any question in the movie itself of any kind of weirdness to it. And, he's played as an ephemeral child, like in a constant arrested development. And you can ask that question whether or not the arrested development is caused by the child abuse that he endures. And I think that's a real tough thing when you're making these biopics. We had the Bruce Springsteen biopic, we had Bohemian Rhapsody, we had Rocket Man. They all put the warts onto the creative geniuses and allow you to kind of see that sometimes genius shines through pain and heartbreak and arrogance and narcissism. Michael doesn't have any of that. He has to get out from under his father. He finds a way to do it. He finds people that he likes. And it's very much a antiseptic view of everything. There's no warts. And I think it's going to be one of the reasons why it's a big hit. And I know I say that in a weird way, but one of the reasons I think it's going to be a big hit is because it is a sanitized version of these events. There's no existential creep. There's no what are we wondering about? Is it darker, deeper, danker? It doesn't get that way. It is a crowd pleaser because you're hearing a full catalog of Michael Jackson music from late 70s, early 80s into the 90s, where they're all hits. So it is very hard to go, and not get your toe tapping or not watching Thriller and realizing the genius of Thriller and how big Thriller was. You can't even imagine how big an album Thriller was or how big the music video was in the 80s. Like I don't think anybody understands. I was thinking about it, right? I got a boombox when I was a kid, when I was about 8. No, wait, when I was about 10. I was 10. The two albums I got were Billy Joel's An Innocent Man and Thriller. And I listened to Thriller on loop, and the Thriller music video is one of my favorites because it's got all the elements of a horror movie. It's got werewolves, it's got zombies, it's got Vincent Price, and it was on rotation on MTV. You could 20 minutes at any given point on, during an hour, 20 minutes of every hour of every day for a good 6 months were Thriller. And so it is very hard to have any kind of ill feelings towards the music or the time frame or this kid getting out from the underneath a stage father who is, played by Coleman Domingo, who is deceptive. He's nasty. He's mean. And it's all very antiseptic and all very level. We never get into why Joe is so tough on his kids. We never get into how the other kids react to Michael's fame, or if there's any hint of jealousy of Michael, or how Michael reacts to how his brothers treat him at any point. None of that comes into play. Most of the scenes you see him are watching movies with his mother, when he comes home and he sits down and he has popcorn with her and they watch classic movies like Singing in the Rain. And so all of his influences are there. And it's, I think it's critic proof in the sense that nobody is going to care because there's so much good music in it. And there's so many incredible stage recreations of all of these different things. Now, the other questions you're going to have, and this is one that I think is palpable. Jaafar Jackson does not sing totally in the movie. It's both him layered over tracks of Michael. So it's it's a blend. So it's both him and Michael. And so you will never be able to tell the difference. The only time Jaafar sings on his own without any Michael tracks underneath are when he's singing a cappella in various scenes, when he's working things through or whatever. Giuliano Cruvaldi also plays the young Michael Jackson. He plays Michael from 5 to basically 5 to when Jaafar takes over, and he is fantastic. He is a kid they found on the internet, who basically was singing and dancing to Michael Jackson music his whole life, like in TikToks and videos. He's great. All the actors are playing excellent roles, and there's not a lot in the script for them to do except kind of do their robotic pieces. Like Michael has a fight with his dad, and then Michael says he's gonna this is the day I'm gonna fight with him and end it. And then he goes and he talks to somebody else and says, "You end it. I don't want to end it." And so it's all very mechanical. But that being said, you can't get over the exuberance of the music. You can't get over what a genius the music was in the 80s. And, aside from being a basic, child star behind the scenes television movie with sky high production values and a music catalog that is, top 5 all-time music catalogs. Thriller, Pretty Young Thing, Billie Jean, and recreations of his most famous performances. I don't think there's a way for this movie not to make a ton of money, but the questions become after the fact, and what you're going to see from a lot of folks. I think most people are going to enjoy it, but at the back of their head, they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, they didn't even cover the trials or the addiction to pain medicine or, the accusations or all of the things that kind of made him controversial are sanded. The edges are sanded, and the estate has a reason behind that. Now, the interesting thing here, another thing, the reason the budget's gotten way higher than it was, is there were reshoots because the estate didn't understand the nature of its NDAs. And another small, slight problem that you'll never really notice. You may notice, but I thought it's kind of comical how heightened it is. Janet is not in this movie at all. In any scene, she is not represented by a young actress who doesn't speak. She is not represented at all. And Janet being the only one of the Jackson family, aside from Michael, who had a huge solo career and who was on the same level of talent as Michael, she has completely distanced herself from this movie, and she has completely not wanted to participate. So it's kind of a weird thing. LaToya's in it a lot. All the other Jacksons are in it, although they barely register different characterizations of each of the brothers. There's no register of any kind of ill will towards Michael or any kind of jealousy. There's no bearing of any of the other brothers saying Michael should do what's right for the family. Nobody backs Joe, who is just this coarse, abrasive, abusive human. And so it becomes a sanded edge kind of movie. Is it a crowd pleaser? Sure. Is Jaafar Jackson great? Yes. Is the child who plays young Michael, Giuliano Valdi, great? Also, is Nia Long good as the mom? Yeah. Coleman Domingo's great as Joe with what he's given, but there isn't a lot there. It's like a greatest hits VH1 movie without any of the problems that you see in those VH1 specials. And I think it will do well up until the point where there's any kind of critical thinking over what we're watching. Because again, watching Michael at the height of his game produce a thriller video, come up with ideas on how it's going to be shot, that he wants to make movies, he wants to do things, and then you remember, like, maybe in the next movie we get Captain EO, which was a huge thing at Disney. I don't know. It ends with his story continues, and it's right as he's preparing to go on releasing Bad and going on the Bad tour. So the kid looks great. He sounds great with underlaying Michael tracks. Coleman Domingo is an excellent villain. Joe monstrosity of a father. But there's very little nuance. There's very little shading. There's very little questioning of Michael. When Michael orders a chimp, when Bubbles gets ordered, none of the people react. They just kind of like, oh, that Michael. And the only one to ask a question is the mom, who's like, how are we going to put this primate and this, wild animal in our house? I'll take care of him. And it's just sanded over. I bought him from a rescue. It was, even that question of like the idea of having an exotic pet isn't even something that is questioned by the filmmakers. Antoine Fuqua is a great director. He made Training Day. He's made so many great movies. And it's not a miss. It's shot well. It's high production values. I mean, but it's not, it's not nuanced, and it doesn't have any of the hard underlying problems, questions, or issues that plagued Michael throughout his life after a certain point. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we're going to get a second movie. But if it's as sanded on the edges as this movie is, usually these musical biopics are warts and all. And this one doesn't have any warts. This one is just straight, daddy's a monster. And while his dad was a monster, you need a little bit more narratively going on. And, the idea that Janet's not in it at all, it kind of gives me a pause on, like, why did Janet not want to be part of this movie? And so it becomes like, it is going to be a hit. There's no doubt in my mind. Because, again, my foot was tapping. But as my foot was tapping, and as you're looking at the whole $170 million movie, where there's no edges to anybody. Everybody is sanded to the point where they're just milquetoast walking through life. No concept that the abusive behavior of Joe might have created the genius of some of his music. None of it is there. And so I just think, while critic proof and sure to be one of the biggest hits of the year, I just think it's a TV movie plus. Michael is a TV movie plus that sands off all the edges that would make the characters in the movie more interesting, sands them off to avoid the controversy. And in doing so, you've created a biopic that, while a crowd pleaser, is empty. It's just flat. Except for those performances. Those performances are incredible. The recreations are so good that, I would imagine the people who see them, who were at the actual performances, at the actual concerts, at the actual tours, will remark about how genuine they are. They look great. Everything looks great. It's a surface movie. It's a crowd pleaser movie on surface, but it's got very little going on underneath the water. And I just came out of it just loving the music, loving the catalog, and thinking there's a lot of stuff missing. Sanding the edges makes things smooth, but not necessarily more interesting. Okay. That's it. That's Michael. Next week, we got Devil Wears Prada 2 and the start of the summer movie-going season. Thank the Lord. We are at the best time of the movie calendar. Comments before we go. Good afternoon. Hi, Ken. Canuck Ken, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. I want to thank you for joining me for New Release Friday. Michael, in theaters now, going to have a big weekend. Going to knock Super Mario Galaxy out of the #1 slot. Going to knock everything down a peg and have a very big weekend. Virtually critic-proof in every conceivable way, but at the same time, also sanded to the point where it's so smooth it's not even there. Thanks for joining us. And if you like what you see, by all means, the Indie Escape Network on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, IMDb, Threads, Blue Sky, and X or Twitter or whatever the hell that man is calling it this week. Thank you for joining us. Everybody have a great weekend. Go see a movie, and we'll see everybody next week for The Devil Wears Prada 2. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day.